for tonight's class, all you're going to need are potentially 2 blocks. If you don't have blocks like this, a lot of times I'll just use like a hydro flask or something that I can lean on. I have 1 blanket and I have my bolster. If you don't have a bolster at home, you're not really going to need one. It's an optional prop, but for what we're going to use it for, a pillow would do, like a stiffer pillow, maybe one that you have on your couch. And this is a restorative yoga class, and we're going to incorporate yin yoga postures. So oftentimes those 2 things get interchanged, like restorative and yin are the same thing. However, they're really not. Yin yoga poses are meant to create some healthy stress on our connective tissue and on our joints. So oftentimes a yin posture might feel kind of intense. It might create a big stretch. It might be almost challenging to stay with for 3 to 5 minutes, whereas a restorative yoga pose should be completely comfortable. You're propped up on pillows or blocks, and it should be a position where your body can really let go completely. In a restorative yoga posture, there's no stress involved, right? Whereas in a yin yoga posture, some healthy stress on the connective tissue or joints to move them is okay. So this class is going to combine both of those things. We'll start off with some yin postures and move into restorative to finish off. Last week's restorative class, we did mostly upper body work, so this week will be lower body work. Let's get started. Take a comfortable seat. One thing I can say about the time of a full moon cycle is that it's a moment where we pause kind of at the peak of this cycle, and then the moon starts to wane. And so on the night of a full moon, it's a good time to take a pause. And so you've agreed to set yourself up for this restorative class tonight to do a practice, which is in and of itself a sacred pause. So even though during this time of stay-at-home orders, a lot of us not leaving our houses, even though that's a pause in itself, for me, I felt really mentally active at times. It's a lot to process. Just figuring out our new schedules on a daily basis is a lot to process. And so even though we're home and it's this pause, I still have felt really busy in my mind, kind of grappling with and trying to figure out what is this time about. And so tonight, my intention for this class, and I'll ask you to join me in this intention, is just to really take a sacred pause, to take a moment for stillness. And even in the midst of our yoga asana poses, to find as deep of a pause mentally as we can. So you can bring your hands to heart center to begin tonight. We'll start singing Om, and Om creates this transition from whatever we were doing before into our practice. It creates this sacred pause with a sound. So join me if you want to sing it, and if not, just listen along. Please take a full, deep exhale. And then a deep breath in. yourself to notice the stillness and the absence of sound. And at the end of an exhale, pause with your breath out for a moment and just notice a small stillness of mind. So as you're ready, excuse me while I set this aside. As you're ready, our first pose is going to be on our knees. Okay, so come to your knees. If that's uncomfortable for your knees, you could use that blanket and soften underneath your knees. Okay, and we're going to tuck our toes underneath. So this is a big stretch for the connective tissue on the bottom of the feet. Tuck your toes and you can reach back, grab for your toes, and try to individually kind of separate your toes away from one another. Okay, so again, you can reach back, try to pull the toes apart so the toes are spread as wide as you're able underneath you. If this is a really big stretch already, feel free to lean forward into the hands so you don't have to sit back any further than this. And if the feet are open enough for it and the toes are open enough for it and you can sit back onto the heels, okay, then we'll sit back onto our heels. So this first pose, a toe squat. Notice if your low back is hyperextending. So notice if you're pulling the low back in here. And if you are, let the sacrum broaden, let the tailbone hang heavy towards the floor. Let your low back lengthen, and you can place your hands in your lap any way that's comfortable. See if you can bring yourself into stillness right in this pose. Let your shoulders relax away from the ears. Let your jaw soften. Relax your face mindfully, maybe for the first time today. Let yourself notice that this is your body, that this is your breath. And that we can take tonight to really pause and consider how do we want to proceed forward with the rest of this time while we're at home, with the rest of this month after the full moon, or just going forward in general. Okay, so if your toes or your feet are starting to burn, right, that's that sensation that yin yoga offers. There's a bit of intensity, right? It's a small discomfort perhaps. See if you can stay with that and know that it's temporary and not permanent. Of course, if you need to come out of the pose sooner than I do, let yourself come out. You can wiggle your toes, wiggle your feet. But if you're able, we're going to stay just another 20 seconds. Again, let your low back relax. Let your whole spine relax. Let your weight drop into your feet. 5 more seconds. Good. And then slowly we're going to lean forward into the hands. It's going to feel achy as we come off the toes, so try not to mind that. And go ahead, roll your ankles out. You can tap your feet on the floor and just let that go. Okay, give your ankles a roll both directions. Whew. Now your feet are awake and alive. Okay, so I'm going to leave this blanket about in the middle of my mat because for this next pose we're going to be on one knee again. I'm going to take my right foot forward into a lunge. Okay, so again, this is a yin yoga posture, a little more active and built to put some healthy stress on our joints and connective tissue. If you do have blocks, this is where I'm going to use my blocks now, placing them on either side of my front foot. Okay, I have my back knee padded on a blanket. You could put a pillow or something underneath that you have at home. Okay, from here, I'm going to untuck my back toe and I'm going to start to let my left hip hang forward. Okay, so my front knee is about straight over my ankle. I want that in that position for now. Okay, so what we're working with is the left psoas. So this whole area, the psoas attaches to the top of your inner thigh, crosses over your pelvis, and then deep inside the low torso, it connects to your spine. So you can lean your weight into your hands. Hey, Yin Yoga calls this dragon pose. That's our dragon tail back there. And so again, a Yin Yoga posture, it's meant to bring some level of intensity. Right? This whole season for all of us is bringing a certain level of intensity, and whether we want to or not, all of us are learning to have to sit with it, or how to sit with it. So much of our practice on the yoga mat is a direct reflection of what we experience in our lives. So we allow ourselves to feel this little bit of stress in the joint, some healthy stress. There shouldn't be pain, right? But a healthy amount of stretch and stress in that left psoas. I do have some weight in my hands, so if it gets really intense, I can press into my hands a little bit more, taking some pressure off that hip. And for the next 45 seconds, maybe even close your eyes and go inside. How far you go in the pose is up to you. Try to release tension in your shoulders, the back of your neck, and your jaw. Watch your mind as it jumps back and forth and tries to wriggle out of the intensity. We've got about 5 more seconds. Take one more deep breath. Good. Now press into your blocks. Again, the hip is going to feel achy as we come up and out. Okay, as you come up and out, just allow yourself to move a little bit in your hips. We're going to stay on this right side for one more pose. And so simply this time, instead of having that right knee over the ankle, I want you to dig your heel into the floor, but let your knee come into flexion. Okay, so your knee can come past the ankle here as long as your heel is on the ground. Okay, so number 1 rule, make sure your heel is on the ground. And then let your knee sink forward as far as possible. We won't stay here as long, but this should just give a little bit of stretch to the calf and the Achilles. Again, don't let your right heel come up off the floor. Keep your right heel down. We'll just stay about 25 more seconds. Can you find a sacred pause even in the midst of intensity? Good. Press into your blocks, shift out. Okay, we're going to send that right leg back, wiggle it out, roll your ankle, send your left leg back, wiggle it out. Good. Okay, so notice how you feel, and then as you're ready, we'll step our left foot forward for that whole sequence on the second side. So again, for the first version of this pose, Yin calls dragon, I'm going to leave my left knee right over the left ankle. So adjust your position so that it's so. Okay, I have my right knee supported on my blanket. And I have my 2 blocks forward of my front foot or near my front foot, wherever is comfortable. Okay, and from here, I'm letting my hips melt towards the floor. So the action of the pose is the right psoas. Okay, the right hip flexor. Again, I can use my blocks. I can press into the blocks to slightly soften the intensity of what I'm feeling in my right hip. So we'll stay 2 minutes. And I encourage you to become still in your pose. That right hip is going to talk to you a lot. See if you can cultivate a sense of pause, a sense of peacefulness amidst that intensity in the right hip. Notice your urges to fidget, either physically or mentally. We have 1 more minute. If it's challenging on your body, challenging on your mind, find your breath. So in the midst of anxiety, unrest, depression, sadness, a sense of uncertainty, whatever it is that we're feeling right now, we have to find a way to breathe through that. And so this practice giving us opportunity to do that. Last 5 seconds, 1 more breath. Good. Shift your hips back. Again, that right hip is going to feel achy, a little sore as we come out. That's normal. Okay, so let yourself rock a little bit forward and back. And then last moment here, again, just maybe a minute in this pose. Now, my left heel is pressed into the floor strong. Make sure your heel's not coming up. Okay, left heel down. And then this pose is more for the calf and the Achilles. So I'm gonna let that knee drop forward. And that is okay as long as my heel is pressed to the floor. There should be no pain in that knee. But maybe you can sink forward enough to feel some stretch in the calf and Achilles. It's tempting to let your left heel peel up off the floor. Don't do it. Okay, we'll stay about 25 more seconds. One more deep breath here. Okay, press back into your right knee. Blocks can set aside. I'm going to slide my left leg back. I'm going to send the right leg back, shake it out. Do the same with the left. Good. Okay, nice job. Those are challenging yin postures. Okay, so for our next pose, it's called half butterfly. I'm gonna take my left foot into my right thigh, just like Janu Shirshasana. Okay, so my right leg is extended. If your hamstrings are really tight, you could slide a block underneath your right knee, or even a rolled blanket underneath your right knee could be a great adjustment. Okay, if your hamstring's on the flexible side, you won't need any support underneath your knee. Okay, and then here we're going to turn towards just to the inside of that right leg and fold. Okay, so here's where pillows or blocks might come in. If you want to fold in and place your head on something. Okay, if your pose is more up here, feel free to just take your arms to the ground, right, and lean in as far as your hips will go. The target area is to feel some stretch in the right hamstring. So wherever you're able to feel that, we'll fold in here and spend about 3 minutes. Spend time noticing how your body gives in a little bit more and a little bit more as we stay. So what does it mean for you to take a sacred pause right now? How do we maybe look at what we've been doing, able to sort out what's not been useful or what's not working, and then look forward towards what might be more useful? Right, at this little turning point of a full moon cycle, how do we want to proceed now? So as you stay in a pose, your body will give in deeper and deeper. So if you can pull a prop out from underneath you now, maybe your body's given in a little bit more. Maybe you can fold slightly deeper for this last minute in the pose. Last deep breath or two here. Okay, slowly use your hands to press yourself up so the back can stay relaxed. And coming out of these poses that are long held can be quite the adjustment. So as you sit up, just let your spine be in neutral. Take a breath. Let yourself slowly untwist towards center. And then when you're ready, we'll switch sides. Pull your right foot into the left inner thigh. Okay, again, if your hamstring's on the tighter side, you could place a support underneath your knee. That might be like a little rolled blanket or a small pillow, maybe a block. If your hamstring's not so tight, you can let that leg extend. We're going to turn towards the extended left leg and then fold. And again, as you start the pose, you might be up here. Maybe a minute into the pose, your body's able to relax a little further. So start at a place that's comfortable. see where we end up. This pose is really nice for the side body, for this one on your back, right side, for the QL muscle, which can tend to be tight. Really feel your right hip root into the floor. We'll stay another 2 minutes or so. So in Hatha Yoga Asana, we would keep our left foot flexed here. We would keep the left leg engaged. In restorative or yin postures, it's okay to let that left leg relax completely. So you don't have to work to hold your toe up. At the start of our last minute, if your body's given in and you can move a prop out from underneath you, you could make that adjustment for our last minute here, last 40 seconds. Really deepen your exhales, last breath here. Slide your hands underneath you and use your hands to press yourself up so the back muscles don't have to do any work at all. Once you sit up, untwist the spine. Just take a moment at center, back is in neutral position. Feel everything unwind and release. There's a lot of sensation when we come out of a long held pose. Okay, so from here, take your feet wide. So if you're facing forward on your yoga mat, your feet could go about as wide as your yoga mat. And then we're gonna windshield wiper the legs side to side here in between poses. So your knee can fall into the opposite heel and then switching to the other side. Okay. So for next pose, again, I want there to be padding underneath my knees. So I'm going to take this blanket and I'm going to open up pretty wide, about like so, and I'm going to put that over my mat. Okay. And I'm going to turn on my mat sideways, so I'll be able to face you here. You can have a block handy, maybe a bolster. I don't think I'm flexible enough maybe to use the bolster, we'll see. Hey, and we're going to take a pose called frog. So what this is, actually I'll show you from the side. What this is that my knees are going to come as wide as they'll comfortably go. My toes are going to turn out to the side, so heels into the midline, toes out. Okay. My knees should be about level with my hips, so I don't want the hips back here, and I don't want the hips way forward. Okay, so hips in line with the knees. Okay, so that's from the side, and then I'm going to show you forward. So taking our knees wide, And then in front, I'm gonna come forward to rest maybe my head on a block. Gonna need the high level tonight. Good, so frog pose. So again, a yin posture. This is not considered restorative, right? You're definitely feeling a lot of intensity on the inner thighs. We'll just stay here a minute and a half, 2 minutes. It's a big pose. Good. So notice when we're put into this place of intensity, what happens to the mind? See if you can override the intensity of the pose with your breath. Notice if there's any tension in the shoulders or the neck or jaw, and try to release. Right, the only tension we want to be feeling is in the inner thighs, the adductors. No tension in the jaw, shoulders, or mind. Okay, we're to our last 30 seconds here. Stay with your breath. Exhale longer than you think you can. Take a big breath in here. And then exhale, exhale, exhale. Keep exhaling longer than you think you can. Empty out your breath all the way down to the pelvic floor. Keep exhaling. Okay. And that's our 2 minutes. So press into your elbows. Lift yourself up first with your hands. And then I like to come out of this pose just by stretching my legs backward. Okay, so I turned on my mat so you could see. Okay, but just go ahead and make a little pillow with your hands. Let your forehead sit on your hands, and then you can wash your legs back and forth. Good job, you guys. That's a big one. Okay, so we're gonna come on up to sit down. Okay. And last really big hip pose before it gets nice and gentle. I'm gonna give 2 options for this pose. The first one's relatively challenging, requires quite flexible hips. Okay, so it's logs of fire pose or double pigeon. Okay, so this isn't going to work for everyone, and so you can wait, and I'll give you another pose option in a minute, but I'll explain this one first. So both of my feet here are flexed, and then my shins are stacked perfectly parallel on top of one another. Okay, if you have space between your knee and your foot, but you're relatively comfortable here, you can put a block between the knee and the foot. Okay, I'm going to show you from the side now. If there's space here, you can put a block. If not, yay, my power is weird and flickering. And then in this pose, we're gonna lean forward. Interesting. Okay, and so you could take your head to a block, you could take your head to whatever's comfortable. My electronics are going crazy in the house, must be a full moon situation. Okay, so that's pose number 1. Pose number 2, you could move your mat to a wall or your couch. And we put one foot on the wall with the knee bent, and your second foot can go ankle to knee. This is kind of like figure 4 pose or thread the needle pose,
But to make it restorative, I can use a prop for my foot. Okay, so my foot could be on a couch or a wall. And I can scoot my bum as close to the wall as necessary to get a good stretch in the outer hip. So we'll take about 2 minutes in this big, lovely hip stretch. Again, oftentimes as you stay in these poses a little bit longer, your body will give away and you might be able to melt in slightly deeper, so allow for that if that's happening for you. And this pose is a huge hip stretch, so plenty of times when we're experiencing that intensity of a stretch, our jaw will start to tense, our shoulders or neck will start to feel some tension. So stay with relaxing the shoulders, relaxing your jaw, breathing deep. We're going to stay 1 more minute. Okay, we've got about 10 seconds left. Take your last deep breath. And again, as you come out of this pose, use your hands. Okay, use your hands to press yourself up. If you're at the wall, you can pull both knees bent into your chest. In logs of fire pose on the ground, take note of which leg is on top. And then open the knees wide again and take a windshield wiper in between. And then we'll set ourselves up for the second side. So again, figure 4 position at the wall. One foot can go to the wall and the opposite ankle comes to knee. And then you can scoot your butt as close to or as far away from the wall or the couch as comfortable. You're looking for some stretch in this top hip. Okay, or those of us in double pigeon or logs of fire pose, make sure it's your second side, opposite leg on top. Okay, the feet should be flexed and the shins should be parallel on top of one another. So your bottom heel is not back by your hip, it's forward. Okay, shins are parallel. You can wiggle the sit bones back a little bit, and then as you're ready, lean into your pose, knowing that you'll start in the pose, potentially in a very different position than you'll end. And we'll take 2 minutes. Stay with your deep, deep breath. Again, on this full moon night, this turning point, this time for a sacred pause. Allow yourself to reflect on what's not been working, what you can leave behind. And breathe into your heart the attitudes and the behaviors and the mindset that we'll take with us. Okay, one more minute. If your body's given in a little bit and you can deepen your pose, go ahead for our last 45 seconds here. Just because it's intense in the hip, don't bring tension into the jaw or shoulders or back. Or even the muscles around the eyes. Relax your muscles around the eyes. I know it's intense. We've got 10 more seconds. Take your last deep breath. Use your hands when you press yourself out. Come on up. Okay, again, gingerly take your legs out of that position. Feet wide on your mat. One more time. Windshield wiper the legs. We're going to come to lie down on our back, finally, right? Pull your knees into your chest. Good. And we're going to grab the outer edges of our feet here just for a quick happy baby. We won't take this too long. If you want to move around in your happy baby pose, feel free. You could stretch out one leg and then the other. You could hang out a couple breaths in happy baby. We've done a lot of leg work tonight. Okay, bring your knees together as you're ready. So 2 choices of how to take this next pose. It's a twist. You can leave your knees together, pull them towards the chest, and then let them just soften over to one side. Okay, so the knees can stay together for a twist. Okay, you can take your other arm and reach it up overhead for a little more side body stretch, or you could stretch that arm straight out from your shoulder. If it's a lot to twist with your knees together, then extend one leg and then bring just one knee across your body. Okay, so 2 knees together in a twist or one leg in a twist. Maybe you try both of them and just decide what feels best tonight. Neither is better, of course. Now that we're on the ground, start to let go even further. Notice what you could relax more. Is it the shoulders? Maybe the eyes or even the eyebrows? And even though we're resting more deeply now, breathe in a way that's so full. Maybe imagine filling yourself bright and full like this pink supermoon tonight. take our last few breaths in this twist. Really fill up down into the low belly, middle ribs, upper chest. Fill up so full with your breath. And when you exhale, one or two more, just wringing your spine out to its fullest here tonight. Bring your knees or knee up to center. Pull your knees into your chest. Okay, and then same pose other side. So if you did both knees together into a twist, go ahead. If you took just one leg, we'll be on our second side. Bring that knee or knees across your body. And then stretch your opposite arm out to the side. For a twisted pose. If your body welcomes it, at the end of your exhales, again, only if it's natural and it feels right, at the end of your exhales, when the breath is empty, maybe you take a little pause there, holding the breath out for a second or two. Allow yourself the preciousness of that sacred pause. The top and the bottom of the ellipses of the breath. And let yourself enjoy the spaces between inhale and exhale. Almost complete in this pose. Let yourself have a few more breaths. Filling up belly, ribs, and upper chest as fully as you're able. Right, shining bright with that full inhale. And when you exhale, letting go into your deepest spinal twist. Roll onto your back. Bring both knees into your chest again. Hug the knees. Okay, we'll roll over to our side, and for this last pose, we're going to do legs up the wall. I hope you have a wall nearby, but if you don't, you could use your couch. And instead of putting your legs straight up a wall, you could put the backs of your thighs to the couch and essentially let your calves sit on the couch like so, and you can lay back and rest. Okay, you could even do that with just a chair if you didn't have a whole couch, right? So any kind of sitting apparatus will do. If you do have a wall and you can bring your yoga mat to the wall and put your legs up the wall, great. This is where our pillow or bolster comes in. So I'm gonna slide that just a little bit away from the wall, maybe 6 inches or so. Again, a pillow would be fine. And I'm gonna set my hips up on that bolster. I'm gonna sit sideways to the wall and then let my legs go up. Okay. So this pillow is supporting my sacrum and my low back. If you don't have a pillow, that's totally fine. It's not necessary for this pose. You could stretch your arms in this position up overhead or out to the sides or down by your hips, anywhere that's comfortable. This is a great time if you have a blanket to put a blanket over your belly or over your upper body. So covering ourselves with something can feel really grounding, really safe, really calming to the nervous system. If you want to wiggle your toes or roll your ankles here, just to get that lymph moving out of the lower legs a little faster, you could go ahead and do that. And then reset your legs into a stillness. Let yourself really melt your way into the ground here. Feel your femur bones sink into the hips, nice and heavy.
I'm going to leave you in this legs up the wall position today. You can stay as long as you like, and when you're done with legs up the wall, please take time to stretch out for a full Shavasana or a full rest. Again, thank you for joining class today. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this YouTube channel. We have more classes coming out every week. The classes are free. If you'd like to make a donation via Venmo, there's information in the description, the video description on how to do that. Thanks again for joining. Namaste.